Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm Ben from Universal Audio, and welcome back to very special office hours. All this week, as you guys probably just saw, we're kind of celebrating the release of the Minimoog trailer. But it's not just a trailer that's the cool part. We're gonna have a Luna session available for that song that's featured in the trailer that was composed by Atticus Ross, who many of you would know from his work with Nine Inch Nails. That's going to be coming out. Should be out tomorrow. Fingers crossed. But we're also celebrating this week by bringing on a ton of special guests. And today we've got a really, really special guest. I'm so excited to have him on. We did a great artist session together down in New Orleans with the Preservation Hall Band. And we've been looking forward to having him here on this show ever since we launched. So everybody, please welcome the one and only Che Pope. What's up, Che?
Oh, good to see everybody out here in Universal Audio World celebrating the move.
Hell yeah, man. Dude, how you living? Are you staying indoors, staying home, staying safe?
I'm fortunate that my home, the property is pretty spacious, so I am staying home, but I can, we have my son has a skate ramp, and basketball hoops, so we can go out there and shoot. We can be outside. We got a pool, so we sit by the pool.
Oh, nice.
And I have the studio.
It's like, and you also have a whole. It looks like a synth playground back there.
Yeah, it really is. It's toy. I call it Toys R Us.
Right.
Toys R Us.
Toys R Us. What so I think a fun place to start is what was it like your first experience using a real Moog synthesizer?
I had dabbled with it. Years ago, I worked at a music store. So I don't even remember what model it was that had come in. It was probably a Minimoog that had come in. And then over the years, I had, just from being in various studios, what I believe the studio was called RPM in New York. RPM was one of those studios that housed a bunch of original synth gear and different, Rhodes and Whirlies and all sorts of vintage gear. And they had some moves. So that's the first time I really got to like play around with it and record with it outside of the store.
Yeah.
But the real first time that I really got, when I started working with Hans Zimmer in about 2002, 2003, he let me use his Minimoog. And I had it in my studio for 2 years. And I tried to leave with it, but
exactly.
I was hoping he forgot about it, but he didn't.
Right.
I had to return it. But that's when I really, really got to like get in the machine, dig it out, like learn every function. And then at that point, I was really new to synthesis, and Hans would be gracious enough. I'd bump into him in the hallway or something at 3 a.m, and he was pulling his hair out, finishing some score, and I'd get those moments, and I'd get these one-on-one moments with, even if it was 15 minutes, where he would just go to the wall and he would just show me shit. So, or he might walk into my room just to get a break from his room, and I'd be sitting there nerding out on the Minimoog. He'd come in and just show me something really quick, and it was like this crash course in the synthesis. And, and that just stays with you. You know what I mean? And
what?
The addiction doesn't stop.
Dude, I was like, what better teacher to have to like get you started in synthesizers than Hans Zimmer, right? Like,
yeah, I know.
Right.
And I mean, his it's definitely the German way of instruction. Turn that knob and figure it out. You know what I mean? It's not really like full explanation, but he's like, start with that knob and then go to that knob. And then you figure it out. You know what I mean? But it still points you. He definitely pointed me in the right direction of, start with the oscillator, start with this, you know what I mean, and really broke it down. And and that's what we were talking about earlier before we came on. I think for anyone who's beginning in this journey, if you've got Luna and you're using Universal Audio, definitely get this Moog plugin because it sounds so genuine, it sounds so real.
Yeah.
Like we talked about before, you could A/B them, and you couldn't pick out which one is which. Just start turning knobs and really start with, if you start with the oscillator, you start with turning the shapes and just start understanding what each shape does. And then as you start, manipulating, then once you go to the oscillator, you start playing with the filters, and then you start playing with different ways you can manipulate your output for modulation and so forth. you just start understanding how to manipulate a sound wave.
Yeah.
Before you know it, it's intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be like, oh, I need a bass, and you'll just go right in and you'll make a bass. You need a lead, you go right in and make a lead. It
Right.
becomes intuitive because it becomes, it's muscle memory.
Exactly. Well, it's especially say you're a guitar player, kind of approaching synths for his first time. You really start kind of drawing those parallels, right? Of like you've got your waveform shapes. It's almost like changing pickups in a way. Like you're changing the overall shape of your raw tone. But then, of course, you got a tone knob that you can play with, kind of like a filter. But then you've got envelopes, which is like how you're playing it. Like there's parallels between all these things. But what the important thing to take away from that is exploration, and just kind of, especially with something like the Minimoog, it's one of those ones that kind of it begs you to do that. It's like, hey, come make something, get weird with this.
Yeah, it really does, because to me, if I would hope, like, I can't, I know there's a lot of people like me that are just knob tweakers.
Yeah.
That just can't leave. I mean, I know there are people that just are, we won't call them lazy, but we'll just say the preset users.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. Sometimes you're in a, whatever your job occupation may be, you may have a deadline. You just got to go fast. But for the knob tweakers, it's almost mandatory that we have to play with. What does this do?
Yep.
What is that? What happens if I turn this one and then turn that one?
Uh-huh.
You start really, and that's what the memory Moog is all about. I mean, the Moog, any Moog.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right. They all just kind of invite you to get hands on with it and to not be too precious about it, because any setting on there's no one right setting for a Minimoog. They will all sound good. They will all give you different colors, different varieties, and serve different musical purposes. So yeah, it's learning and just kind of getting it into your, making it intuitive to yourself, of like, when you want something, which knob it is that gives you that.
Yeah. And that's just that exploration. But it never gets, what I like about it is the exploration is never over.
Mm-hmm.
It's not one of those things you're like, oh, I've figured it out. I've reached the end of the maze. No, it doesn't end. The maze doesn't end. That's what's so great about it, Yeah. And then you add you add the Moog, and then you start, accessorizing it with, whether you're running it through amps or different effects or pedals,
Mm-hmm.
It becomes a whole new animal all over again.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Do you have some favorite effects that you like to, speaking specifically about the Minimoog, like, do you have some kind of go-to effects that you like to pair with it?
I do. Some of my, well, I'm a fan of sound toys.
Mm-hmm.
And so for immediate gratification, I would say, if I am in a situation where I'm moving fast,
yep,
and I got to get immediately out of what I'm looking for out of my move, I would go to the Decapitator.
Mm-hmm.
I would go to the Devil Oak.
Yep.
Those are ones that just immediately, especially if I'm using, like, I tend to use Moogs, I would say, heavily for my bass sounds and for my lead sounds.
Mm-hmm.
I love, like, if everyone out here is familiar with Mike Dean, I love the way Mike Dean uses synths with, in hip hop and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I tend to use it similarly in the fact that I like layering a bass sound with a lead,
mm-hmm.
and the sound toys helps me get that immediate color. But if I have more time and I'm exploring, and then I go into all sorts of things.
Yeah.
The Bermuda Triangle is a friend of mine in terms of you move, because the Bermuda Triangle, what I like about it, it's like this one trick pony, meaning it's the same thing. It's like immediate gratification of this rawness. I tend to go more for the analog distorted things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely a tape guitar pedal kind of a combination for me.
Yep.
Versus some of the, there's all kind of things like the output portal effect and
mm-hmm.
M rhythmizer and some of these really cool things that you can manipulate synth sounds with. I tend to go more for, like, almost like the immediate gratification, like the raw shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Distortion pedals, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. And then, so do you find, I think for some people it feels counterintuitive to be throwing distortion on synths, right? They kind of think like distortion is either, something you wait till you mix or something you throw on guitar to make it heavy. What, in your mind, what is distortion kind of adding to a synth sound that you don't get, just by opening up the filter or doing something else?
Yeah, I mean, you can get it from, you can, obviously with a Moog especially, you definitely can, and and how you manipulate the filter and the noise, you can really get this raw biting sound. But what I love about adding a sort of a guitar effect to it, because it's almost like running, it's like if we were literally just sitting here, we were plugging in, plugging into different things. You get the circuitry that's in that particular, whether it's if you're using an external pedal or even a virtual pedal, you get, and it's an emulation, you get the circuitry that's attached and the sound coloration that's attached to that particular product. That manipulates the synth in a different way, in a different manner than it would normally on its own. So it's just levels to it. And for me, I still think of things kind of in a punk, in a hip hop way. So meaning, even if I'm approaching a pop song or something for a cinematic thing, I tend to still, you used the analogy of RZA earlier. I still approach things in a Wu-Tang, in mindset. So it's almost like mentally Wu-Tang. So it could be a pop song, but it's still through a Che Wu-Tang sort of mindset. And that means I'm looking for this additional bite, which I get through tape plugins and tape saturation. So that's why Luna is great, having the tape saturation on every track available for me. And that's not taking away, any, it's not working just like, it's taking away no DSP or anything like that. So that's a great thing for me because, I was prior to that, I'm using things like the Dangerous Summing Mixer and all sorts of things to try to add that analog thing. So I've always been a big fan of Apollo, already using the Ampex 102 on my master bus, or using the 456 across the channels. So the fact that it's already built in is just a great thing for me. So those are the types of things that I really incorporate into my synths and my moves. Analog but saturation, distortion, and filters and modulation when I'm looking for a certain effect to it.
Well, a lot of times that's kind of what adds life or character to a sound, right? It's one thing to like land on a sound that you like, but it's another thing to kind of perform along with that sound, right? Of tweaking the cutoff or tweaking the envelope, the decay. There's all these subtle things, both subtle or very exaggerated moves that you can make with a synth that take it from just like, okay, you get nice bass patch, but like, what about opening up your filter for the chorus or using it to help build through a pre, or really filter it down for the bridge? Like there's all these manipulations,
the filters and so forth. Yep, exactly. And that's definitely a tool. I mean, I think one of the things that we have to give a shout out to the EDM guys and the house and those tech. They're so great with their editing. You know what I mean? And I think they're the ones that really introduced, whether it's the drum and bass guys and the dubstep and all that stuff, where they, in terms of automating and obviously we can go back earlier when you're talking about like early Daft Punk and stuff like that, where they were doing really amazing tricks with that stuff. Yeah,
filter it down, just kind of really take it here, and then chorus, just boom, open it up.
Yeah, and I think those are the things that that really bring life to a track too. You know what I mean? And that's do when you, especially with the VST versions of this, right, where it makes it so much easier to automate some of these functions.
Yeah,
of that nature, where it gives you an unparalleled level of control in what you can do with it. Automating those functions and automating the inserts that you incorporate to manipulate.
Yep, absolutely. So, the amount of things that you can automate can get infinite very fast. How do you kind of pick and choose then, like what thing, what parameters to kind of tweak on a certain part?
I mean, for me, it still goes back to the feeling of the record. You know what I mean? It's still, at the end of the day, I'm trying to evoke a feeling with the record, right? So even bringing in the synth, a lot of times I use a synth to add an element to it, like meaning the track may be going a certain way, and I bring in the synth, whether it's bass or lead, to really either give you that body all of a sudden where it's like, whoa, or do something. So for me, it's about the dynamics. So it's for me, it's still about that emotion, trying to trigger that emotion and triggering it. Sometimes it's taking it away. Sometimes it's bringing it in. Sometimes it's rising it. Sometimes it's automating it, with just the volume automation, things of that nature.
Yeah.
So it's really, for me, trying to pull that emotion out of the record, or add that emotion to a record, to give people that feeling. So I think that's always been my approach. And if automation, a lot, like the rise and the drops and the filter and the unfilter, the opening of, increasing the modulation so things, you know what I mean, go,
Yep.
I can put somebody, it's almost like giving someone mushrooms that you can control the level of the effect of the mushroom.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's always the goal.
Well, speaking of going on a trip, I think it'd be really dope to get a look around your studio before we dive into the box and really start geeking out about this plugin. You've got way too cool of a collection sitting behind you to ignore, and not at least get a quick little walk around.
Okay, I think you gotta enable me
Let's see.
because I'm disabled.
Ask to start video.
Okay, and then I do.
There we go.
Okay, cool. Let me.
I'm gonna pin. Perfect.
We'll give the studio tour. Let's see.
Hell yeah.
All right. Let's start over here. Let me get my thumb out of the way. We stop at the top. That's the subsequent 37.
Nice.
This is Moog Day.
Yep, it is. It's all about the Moogs. Yep.
Yeah. I still use. I still use MPC 3000 sometimes.
Yeah.
Just because I like the rawness of the drums that come through it. So I don't use a zip drive anymore to sample or save anything. So anything I put in the 3000, I record directly into the machine.
Oh, so you don't? So you're not saving? Are you not saving sequences or anything on there anymore?
Yeah, I'm not doing that because I just just using zip drives is just challenging.
Yep.
So they have a modification where you can put an SD card into it, but I haven't put that on here.
Yeah.
So I tend to use this almost just literally like right on live and recording.
Yep.
ASR 10.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows that from Kanye. That's what Kanye uses a lot.
Yep.
That's a one. This is probably my new favorite toy.
Dude, that thing is so much. We've got one of those over at our Real Video studio, and that's you can lose an entire day to just exploring the sounds on that beast.
That's, favorite. I do use the modern MPC because sometimes you just need the technology.
Yep.
Just for the modern production really works better, but it still gives you that MPC feel. I don't use the MPC software. I only use it in standalone mode.
Okay.
I have software that goes in the computer. I like to track my MPC. I think we were talking about this earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I like to track my MPC similar to how I would be right in a real studio. I go usually through a Neve and an SSL.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So just like I'm on a Neve on a SSL console, so I'll either use a Neve or an SSL, plug-in. I'll use an LA2A. Like hitting it just like I would be in a real studio.
Nice.
The baby Mellotron.
Oh, what, dude? Is that new? I feel like I haven't seen that before.
They have the big one, but that's the small one. I like the small one because I tend to work on the road a lot, so that goes with me. Turntable.
Yep.
I like sounds.
Yep.
I'm over here. Oberheim OB6. I was a big fan of the real OB6, so the Dave Smith version is really great.
Mm-hmm.
I've used the Prophet X, but I don't have one. That's probably one of the next things I will get because I like the Prophet X is a nice compliment to go with that.
Totally.
I still have the stable because the virus to me is just with the broken key. So they try to charge me an absolute fortune to fix this key.
Oh, I bet.
But for one key, it'll stay broken. Virus still to me just has just a plethora of like stable sound. Just a really good tool.
Mm-hmm.
Electron analog keys.
Yep, those are great.
Great toy. The grandma.
Mm-hmm.
Grandma's great for like the only thing about grandmas is once you have a great sound that you love, you don't really want to change it.
Welcome to the fun world of dealing with modular synths, right? Of like you love it and then you kind of don't want to let go of it until you get so like I need it right now and you let go.
Usually this stays on the same sound for about a month or two. And then I'll play with it. Find what's really great about this, if anyone hasn't played with it yet, the spring reverb function really allows you to do some really cool things with it.
Oh, totally.
So that's one of my favorites. Back here.
Oh shit! There's a third row. I only thought there were two. There's oh wow! It goes deeper.
Yeah. Back here is a keyboard from the '60s, or I think the late '60s, early '70s. It's the Kumar Orchestrator. So when they couldn't afford an orchestra, they didn't have a budget for it. They you would get this keyboard, and it's got, it's analog, so it's got, when you go and use the strings from it, similar to a Mellotron in terms of it has these string sounds and these orchestra type sounds with its own character to it.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Mom 1501, which is the Russian version of it.
Okay.
It's a knockoff of the Krumar, but it sounds completely different. Then, for those who want to really nerd out, you got to get into Module World.
There we go.
This is a deep rabbit hole, which I can't say that I've mastered in any way, but I love it. It's very addictive, and you can lose weeks at a time.
Absolutely.
I'm a huge fan of the D-Fan. So I don't know, I'm sure people out there are familiar with the percussive D-Fan one. I love this. This is the Mother 32.
Nice.
All those go. I'll actually link all these together with the grandma, and that's how I tend to work off those. I'll have all three of them going.
Oh, dude, that's got to be. You can make some really rad sounds there.
All right, and here I'll show you rig number 2.
Nice.
So that's a tape machine, which I do have wired, but it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
It's not wired for it.
Hey, Jay, can you turn the mic on your iPad? I tried unmuting it, but it won't let me. There
Can you hear me now?
Yep, perfect.
Okay. So over here we have an Octagon.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Preservation Hall Jazz Band from our trip to New Orleans.
Oh man, that was
signed by all the guys in the group.
Dude, what a fun trip, and cool. What a cool project, right?
Yeah, exactly. That was great. This is Harmonium right here.
Oh wow.
And if people don't know this, actually, even though you plug it in, it's actually somewhat of a wind instrument.
Mm-hmm.
The way it compresses wind and so forth. So people.
I was like, normally a manual harmonium, you had to sit there and pump the bag on the back of it.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. White upright.
Mm-hmm.
I don't cut live piano as much as I do. This is more for writing the idea. We'll write ideas on this and then you record it using Keyscape normally. When I'm not lazy, I'll take all this stuff off the top and actually mic the top of this. But usually we're lazy and just use Keyscape and just write. But we do use it often.
Yeah.
The Rhodes. Same thing.
Boy.
Don't really record too much on the Rhodes. We use it more to write ideas.
That one looks like it's got that Rhodes looks like it's gotten a lot of stories.
A lot of stories. It's got lyrics on the top of it from a Biggie song and a Tribe Called Quest song on the side, and it's painted. Guitar World, bunch of pedals, mostly Death by Audio because one of my favorite pedal companies out of Brooklyn. Death by Audio, a lot of really angsty kind of sounds.
Yep.
Nothing but Fender amps. I'm a huge Fender fan.
Yeah.
Just I can't play like that, but I love Hendrix. So the Strat is a staple. Ton of pedals, and this is the second rig. It's another rig in here.
Oh, nice.
My other Apollos.
Yep. And the controller.
Guitar World.
Yeah.
And then vinyl.
And just records on records on records.
That's pretty much it. The Jag, a lot of guitars.
Mm-hmm.
Basses. Oh, this one's cool. I think everybody needs this.
Oh yeah, dude. The electric sitar.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
A save. And then when it's earlier in the day, I can't play them at night. I use the PA speakers when I really want to get noisy. So
yeah, I love it. You've got the PA speakers wired up like headphones, basically. Super loud headphones, right, right in your face.
Exactly. So I'm gonna do this, and let's stop the video on this.
Nice.
All right, back in position. So that's pretty much rig 1 and rig 2.
Awesome, dude. What a cool spot, man. You've made a lot of people super jealous. Congratulations. But that's kind of cool thing, right? You kind of collect these things over the years, and it grows and grows, and each one have a different thing, right?
It's definitely a habit. I mean, obviously there are people that I know that do amazing things with just their laptop and in a phase and one guitar. For me, I think part of doing this for so many years, you just keep finding inspiration, and I find inspiration in the different pieces of equipment.
Yeah.
I have 10 drum machines. I don't need 10 drum machines, but they just work differently. You know what I mean? And so just being on a 808, rolling 808, I'm going to make something different than if I'm on the MPC or if I'm, programming in the box.
Yep.
For me, it's just about having just different things to work with and play with and tweak. And that's why I love the physical sense too, because I can actually touch the knobs. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Well, so now that we've kind of checked out your physical real world
Yeah.
situation, let's you want mind sharing your screen and let's jump into Luna and see what you're getting up to in
Go,
there.
go into this. Here we go.
Awesome. So you just kind of you've gotten up and running with Luna here just recently. How you finding it so far?
It's really what I like about it. It's pretty simple.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody's already worked on a DAW or Pro Tools or anything like that, you're gonna pick it up lightning quick
Yeah.
because it's very obviously you just learn the basic commands, but it's really really I would say it's like kid simple,
Yeah.
honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Like honestly, like my kids are almost grown, but my kids are already learning it already as well.
Oh yeah.
They use my rig, and they're really quick. So they probably actually, my daughter might have even learned it faster than I did.
Nice. Well, and so far, have you had a chance to kind of create some music in it, or like what have you been
I
finding it
have.
useful for so far?
Yeah. So this is actually probably the second idea that I made in it, and I had to do a little. I have to do something for this little TV spot. So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it's a perfect opportunity for me to sort of do this thing I have to do for this television program, and I did it in Luna.
Nice.
So I'll sort of backtrack how I did the track.
Mm-hmm.
I tracked the drums into Logic, and the reason I did that is because I was able to use beat clock in Logic.
Yep.
And I tracked it through console, and
Mm-hmm.
I set up my console accordingly so that I let me see if I can go back into my console real quick, just to show you.
Yeah.
And I hope I didn't take them down, but I tracked all my MPC like I was saying earlier. I like tracking through things.
Yep.
So let's see if I still have it up. Oh, it looks like I took it down, but no. Well, I still have it up.
Mm-hmm.
This time I tracked the individual sounds through a 1073, but many times I'll have a full signal chain.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Of how I do my drums. It varies, and I think just because for this particular demonstration, I probably did it relatively quickly, so I didn't do my full signal chain.
Yeah.
Um,
But it adds a little something to it, right? Because this way you're getting like you've got digital drum samples on a digital sampler. Like everything about it is super. It's their goal, right, is to keep high quality. They want it to sound as good as possible. But like the sound that is in all of our ears is like MPCs passing through a console, like an SSL or a Neve or an API console before going to Pro Tools or tape. So adding that little touch of
Yeah, and exactly, and for me, it's very, it's just having grown up, in the analog age.
Mm-hmm.
I basically I do it just how I did it in the studio, in a real studio. How I pretty much create the same sort of signal path that I did in a real studio, and it allows me to play with the character of these samples coming off the MPC before I commit it to tape, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I'm able to manipulate it, and that's what I love about it. If you use a 1073, you still have you can manipulate it, you can dull it, you can boost it, you can smack, you can smack the signal more and things of that nature. So
yeah. Well, and some people when they first hear an 808 without any processing on it, they think it sounds weak, right? Like just a plain Jane like 808 drum machine coming in mono with no EQ or compression or anything on it sounds super foreign. Like I thought it was broken the first time I heard one with no effects on it.
No effects on it. Yep, exactly. And I mean, and that's what and some of the basis to my sound and coming from a sort of an from the hip hop world in terms of my origins and people I looked up to, meaning RZA and DJ Premier, it was necessary for me to find these nuances to add character to it. I mean, those are differentiators of as I was creating my own sound and figuring out my style and my what I wanted my stuff to feel like. Those were necessary nuances to be able to incorporate.
Yeah.
So every drum that's gone through here came through, and I'll play a little preview of it before I actually play the track. Let me just play the drums.
Yeah.
Before I get into some of the other sounds.
I'm going to show you cool. So in Luna, there's a cool trick that you can. I don't know if you've seen this yet, but you can click and drag on mute buttons and solo buttons, and it'll just keep it rolling. So yeah, if you click on a mute and then drag upwards while you keep holding
so if I would do it, I go down.
Exactly.
Okay, that's good to know.
And it works for solos, record enables, input. There's a lot of these kind of fun little workflow things we've discovered over the last couple of weeks.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's good to know. I'll play the drums, and you can kind of hear how they smack.
Coming through good.
I got the bass playing. I didn't want the bass playing. Sorry. Give me 1 sec. Take that off of there. Take that off of there. And you see some of the way I start tracks. Sometimes it's about me finding a vibe. In this particular case, I found a cool percussion loop that I wanted to manipulate. I pitched it down some and solo that first. And this one I did put. When I first found it, I would say I put some nice compression on it with like an LA2A to bring it up because it was real subtle.
Yeah.
And I lost some of the texture when I pitched it down. So it was important to compress it a little bit and get it back. And I didn't want it to be too alive, so that's why it's kind of, you hear it pretty noisy.
Yeah. So it's got some extra sizzle hiss kind of popping through.
That was kind of the foundation of the track actually, and I started with that, and then I just built some drums around it. Sounds are from a vintage Casio drum machine. So that's where those sounds are from. Let me see if I actually remember which Casio. I'm pretty quick with that. Let me see. It is from the PT30. So
cool.
For any of you old heads who might know what a Casio PT30 is, that's where a lot of the drum machine sounds come from. And then they're tweaked on the MPC, and then obviously manipulated through the Neve coming into the box. So that's how I started this, and I built it from there.
Nice.
I'll play a piece. I want to put out, let me skip ahead to the kick, and then I'll play the whole track. But the reason I want to skip ahead to the kick, I went a little further. One of your other guys you work with, who's a friend of mine, who I love him to death, is Mr. Justin Blaze, aka Just Blaze. Just Blaze has done some presets for your SSL plugin. I love his kick preset, so I tend to use it on my kicks. And it's from his he calls it his Exhibit C, which is his J Electronica track preset. So I added that because it just really does something to, for those who wanted to see it, if you want to see it.
Yep.
Settings, if you look what, how he's manipulated it, it's really mostly on the low end in the low mids.
Yep. Oh wow, yeah. It's just it just bumps and then compensating.
Yeah, it really it's like pure hip hop.
Yeah.
Literally take almost an ordinary kick, and all of a sudden it just gives it that.
Yeah.
So, hey, I'm giving you one of my cheat codes. So that's one of my cheat codes. So the Just Blaze kick setting on the SSL preset. So that's one of my cheat codes.
Yep.
And then I'll go back and let's play the track, and we can get into some of the Moog stuff.
Hell yeah.
But I did that because I wanted to get sort of like this sort of like the percussion mixed with the MPC drums to give it this sort of feel and texture even before I started adding music. backtrack.
Yeah. Dude, that's
So-
right. I love how like even the lead, like in that little bridge area, like it starts getting lower and lower. You're just like, okay, like it works up high, but it also works down low.
Yeah. So I actually added the Moogs first.
Oh yeah.
I was playing around and I like I'm one of those guys because I'm not a true keyboard player. So if I find like a key that I like, I'll tend to like write in those keys. And one of the keys that I found recently, I play around with different keys. I'm usually my go-to is A flat minor. It's like my favorite.
Yeah.
But recently I've been playing around a lot more in B minor.
Okay.
And so I started this off really. I'll skip right ahead to actually the way I started this track. Like once I had the drums, I added this part next. So
it's got the lead, it has the brightness, but that's the one it's also got a shitload of body to it.
Yeah, I did go in because I was as I was familiarizing myself with the plugin. I'll go up here, I'll go into the Moog. I found a preset I liked, and then I just manipulated it from there. So if we click on the presets, as a matter of fact, for those who like, this has a great starting point.
Yeah.
Of different, lines over here. So there's a lot of really great starting points. So I definitely, suggest if you guys get this, that you start over here and then you really play with it. And this one is the giant unison one.
Yep.
And I really just started manipulating it over here. And my primarily, manipulation of this particular one was primarily I boosted the noise. I played with the cutoff filters. Other than that, I didn't do too much of this one because I was getting what I was looking for to start the track off.
Yeah.
So I would say I went from there, and then I was like, I needed some kind of, I knew I wanted to, the idea of this track was for kind of a TV thing. It's a kind of a scene. So I needed the music to be alive, kind of, you know what I mean? Almost like it was scrolling. So almost like you were watching a scene and it was scrolling.
It just kind of, it's this thing in the background that just keeps rolling, and it's like it's there, but it's not trying to jump out or really like take over.
Exactly. So even though I started with this originally was on bar 1. I moved this now. I moved this more to bar 9, and then I was like, let me figure out some kind of cool synth. So I played a synth, which is a VST, and then I manipulated the synth in Cable Guys. So everyone who knows Cable Guys, pitched sounds down, and that's this sound, which is muted. So let's go back. And then I. That lead part, I wrote that later because I wanted to almost introduce the other part. So I'm calling this lead is almost like still part of my intro.
Yeah.
So I use this sort of pitch down Rhodes synth kind of sound, and that's how, and that's really how the track came together. That was really my process. And once I really had that lead part, just that, which I'm getting latency now because no, I'm not. I thought that was because of the iPad, but no. So when I had that part, that was kind of like, okay, I almost saw the rest of the track there. So I did it. Then I just wanted the intro. That was just to announce it.
Yep.
Then so once I had that, I wanted to accent it with another move, and I needed that deep bass, that heavy bass. That's where we just, we started accenting it. It's funny when you dissect your tracks because you do this without thinking.
Exactly. You just do it in the moment, right? And now you got to think about it.
Trying to explain it, yeah. But it's almost like the track telling you what it means. And so, once I sort of started filling in the blanks, it's like filling in the blanks. So as I'm playing the track. me, that's getting in the car and driving.
Yeah.
So the other part is like, okay, we open the door to the car, we're getting in, starting the car, when that lead comes in, and then when the hi-hat and kick comes in and the move with the arpeggiated play, that's when we're putting it in drive and going.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the idea. And I guess you could say I was a little bit inspired by the Drive soundtrack, because I love that movie and I love the soundtrack to that. And I knew I needed to make this sort of scrolling piece like I was talking to. And so and then from there it just keeps changing. And the Moog, and I never really duplicate the lead. The Moog lead is the featured instrument in the track.
Yeah.
I never really duplicate what it's doing. It continues. It
just keeps evolving and kind of changing.
Yeah, it keeps. So let's see if I can. Yeah, it goes from there to. Bring it back later.
Yeah.
You can hear I don't quantize it. I tend to not quantize, by the way.
Yeah.
So all that I kind of keep. I like keeping the mistakes and the nuances of it, unless it's just really bad.
Yeah.
If it's really bad, then I will edit it. But in general, I make it a thing to not really quantize my keyboard playing, to give it enough of a live feel.
Yeah.
And I'll tend to live with the little nuances like that, like the little flubs and the. Because I've had the fortunate I've gotten lucky over the years where I've been given sessions from records from the 60s and 70s, and I've been able to hear those sessions broken out. Amazing records that I've heard when you solo the parts and the synth parts, and you realize they're recording it to tape, this and that.
Yeah.
Sometimes they didn't fix some of those things.
Nope.
And that really gave it life. And that's always been something I've done over the last 20 years. I've always just kept that, like, now, once again, if it's really bad, I'll fix it. But some of those nuances I play, and that's really kind of my style. I'll use I'll only EQ as needed. I'm not one of those people that go plug in crazy. I will go down to my main. Let's talk. I do like. I'm very particular about my mix bus, my final sort of setup, what I put on my output channel.
Yeah.
Let's see. In this case, I'm pretty. I think I'm using. Let's see what I'm using. Let's go to my inserts. In this case, I tend to use some form of multi-band compressor. In this case, I'm using the Precision. There's actually a preset in the Precision one I like, which is basically almost like, the hip hop hype. What that to me does, it really emphasizes the bass and the mid lows. You know what I mean? And also gives some life to the top end. But I just like one of the things that brings it to life. And then what I'll do is I'll put a G-Bus compressor on it. And I'll always boost the makeup. I don't want to lose the life of. Sometimes when you put the G-Bus on, it can be so loved. It can give so much love to the track. You lose a little bit of the excitement of it.
Yeah.
So I'm big on making it up, but I'll play with the threshold to make sure I'm pushing it and it getting the knock that I want.
Yeah, but do you, for the attack and release times, is that kind of where you keep them locked?
Yeah. Yep. I tend to, you know what I mean. I tend to go with.
It's an interesting combination. So having the attack a little bit shorter like that, you're kind of getting a little bit more. You're getting as close as you can to the transient, right?
Yeah. And for me, same thing. It's really just a feel thing. So, once again, I was saying earlier about making sure that emotional connection is there. And for me, that's the last stage where you can really affect what you're doing. Depending on what sounds I use, I'll tend to use some saturation there and a tape plug-in on my master if it really needs more warmth. But in this particular case, I like the life that the Moog was giving me.
Yeah.
So I really just emphasized, I almost like I electrified it.
Yeah.
And I only use the Precision when I want to do that one.
Yeah.
If I'm not doing that, then I'll go to something. There's a DMG limiter that I like. I believe it's called Limitless
Mm-hmm.
is one I like, and it's kind of subtle.
So
I'll kind of play around with the Shadow Hills mastering compressor because it does some cool things.
yep.
I tend to use that a little bit on my more pop flavored tracks.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little brightness to it. It's a mastering compressor tech, So,
Yeah.
but it's really cool on your final mix.
Totally.
Other than that, I tweak as needed. You know what I mean? Really, if I and it tends to be a lot. I'm EQ heavy, so my tweaking tends to be more EQ and compressor than really going to other like tricks, if you will.
Yeah.
And those are staples. Pultex, for my EQ is my general go-to on EQ.
Mm-hmm.
A Neve and SSL channel.
Yep.
I'm not one who really uses too many different plugins unless I'm just experimenting. But I'm a big fan of Pultec EQs. LA2A is probably my go-to when I need subtle compression, just in overall.
Just kind of like level it out a little.
Yeah, just level it off. LA2A is definitely my go-to.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the fact that we can use Fairchilds, with our universal system, that's a luxury.
Yeah.
For me, Fairchilds tend to be something I really use on vocals and guitars.
Yeah.
You just find your go-to things that you love. I tend to be heavy-handed with my moves, like as we discussed earlier.
Yep.
I'll be aggressive with them. Sometimes I will really, really be go aggressive with the compression on it too.
Yeah.
Just to get something out, just to really.
If you really
drive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you really want the attack of it to really pop through, right? You put throwing a compressor after it lets it kind of transient comes through and then it locks it down for the sustain.
Yeah, and I don't think I tend to not really have production that does not have some Moog element in it. I think for me it's a staple. It's a texture thing as well as like I said, an emotional connection to it as well.
Yeah.
I don't think whether it's a hip hop track, a pop track, or a score, I don't think there's really a track that goes by that there's not some incorporation of a Moog for me. Honestly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I believe that. So one of the things I thought would be fun to touch on is it's cool. It's really cool seeing like how you've kind of developed some favorite presets in different plugins. You got some kind of go-tos. Yeah. Do you have is that kind of part of your process typically, like looking for new presets, or do you kind of have these staples that become your starting points that you kind of find yourself always gravitating towards?
If I'm in a groove, I approach track making both ways. There's sometimes when I'm in pure exploration mode. And there's sometimes where I'm just grooving and I'm just flowing.
Yeah.
And if I'm just grooving, I'm just flowing, I tend to go to my go-tos because the track making process is almost like an out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
I'm just going. But then there's times where I'm in pure exploration mode. And those times I'll almost never use a staple. I'll almost always go into some uncharted territory. And that tends to be, I literally will just scroll through my Apollo plugins because there's so many great things to choose from that, I'll give you an example. Just, it's a process, and I really welcome. I think everyone, as you build your plugin library, you should use it because, obviously I said before, the ATR 102 is one of my go-tos.
Yep.
But you just get into things. You use. One of the things I've been experimenting, which I also suggest people experiment, is with Autotune. Obviously, everyone knows Autotune for vocals.
Yeah.
Autotune will do some really cool things on some patches. So I think people should experiment with using Autotune in different ways that you've never thought about it. That's been one of my new things.
Yep.
I think, honestly, I have to give that credit to somebody else. Friend of mine from Norway, shout out my boy Ronnie.
Nice.
Who put me on to some stuff with that.
Yeah, especially like leads, basses. Like I've used Autotune on electric bass before, especially if you're kind of blending real bass and 808, like sub bass type stuff. If that bass is a little bit out of tune, you'd be surprised how Autotune can just lock those two together and really make them work.
So I would say Autotune is a tool that I'm shout out to my boy Damn, Jess Jackson, who's one of the
Yep.
owners of Antares. Shout out to Jess Jackson for also putting me on to new ways of using Autotune. So for those who haven't really been exploring, and especially if you use the universal version of Autotune, because of the low latency thing, you can really do some amazing things with it. So that's a new toy I've been up with. I'm a fan of dance hall music and dub music and the sound that they get, coming out of these, from the vintage dance hall in Jamaica. And one of the things I learned about it was they used a lot of the API stuff. So when I know I want my stuff raw in certain ways, and especially if I'm cutting live bass, I almost always use APIs on my live bass for hip hop stuff.
Which one, the 560 or the 550?
I would say the 560 is my go-to.
Yeah.
But anytime I'm going into that space, I'll really always use API stuff. That's one of, for those who haven't played with the API, it's great. Those who, early hip hop days, the Avalon,
Yep.
the go-to pre. So I still use that sometimes on as a pre with my mics. My mics currently right now, I'm using a Sony. I used to have a C800. I don't anymore, so I have a C100.
Okay.
Which I'll, a C100 through a Burrow pre almost gives me a C800.
Yeah.
I really want the C800 right now. I use a Slate Digital. I also use a U87 for the people that want a Neve.
Yeah.
But the U87 with the Avalon is great for like
classic
great pop vocals, great clean R&B and pop vocals. Once again, I told you about the Bermuda Triangle. I use that on synths all the time. Still use it on guitars. And then there's so many things in here that if we go through the saturator I use, because
I was like, we're only in the B's and we've already found like 10 of these. It's so good.
It's really cool that I think it's a sleeper.
Yeah.
It is, and I think I talked about this in another video. If I haven't, man, this thing right here, fucking Century Tube channel strip.
Secret. Well, it's a little hidden gem.
This is a hidden gem that I don't think a lot of people know about. This is when I'm in it deep in a session. Shit's not going right. I you know what I mean? I'm not getting the sounds fast enough that I need, or out of a vocal or this and that. Man, I pull this sucker up.
Boom.
And I can almost fix anything that I'm having trouble with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whether it's a vocal that's not getting the sound right. So this is one of my immediate gratification, heat of the battle go-tos.
Yeah.
So I really think everyone should have this in their arsenal, because this is a heat of the battle session maker. This is on the front line of fucking, Desert Storm or some shit. You know what I mean? Like,
right. All you needed was a helicopter and the Century Tube channel strip.
Yeah, you know what I mean? This is what, man, I can't tell you, like, I've been, I wasn't a big camp guy. Recently, over the last 5 years, I've participated in more song camps, especially K-pop world. Yeah. This is one of my go-to immediate gratification tools, heat of the battle type tweets.
Hell yeah.
So I'm a huge fan of that. I would say that I don't use it just in general. I use it in the heat of the battle.
So yeah, it's a nice one to have in your back pocket, and just, session's kind of stuck. You're not sure what to do. Oh, here we go. I remember that guy right here.
Another one of my favorites is the Dangerous products. I own, as everyone knows who have seen my studio and who just saw the tour, I own a Dangerous 2-bus.
Yep.
I don't tend to use the 2-bus so much anymore because I'm getting so much out of my Apollo rigs and my plugins that I'm able to almost get what I need out of that without even having to use the Dangerous oven mix. One of my go-to on my final mix channel, especially when I'm doing a mix on a record.
Yeah.
I'll use the Dangerous Backs EQ. I'll use both of them. I just play with them. I love them. I tend to use probably this one, the master one, more.
Me too. I like having the stepped response on it. Do you have any like default settings that you like to go to with the backs?
I'm good at tweaking it, but there's definitely, I'm always good for the thick widener. Is definitely one. I'm for me, it's all about thickening usually.
Yep.
And usually that's when I'm using it for anyway. So I would say I don't use I've used the perfect mix setting before, but I would say for me, the just right loudness is one of my favorites.
Yep.
And that's when I'm being a little more subtle, and I just need that. But I would say my go-to is the Master Thick Widener.
Yeah.
Only because for me, I'm always trying to like fatten. Everyone has their thing. Digital in general, to me, the challenge with digital is always taking it from thin to fat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you notice, see what I'm even using in here, even as my monitoring system, I use the Avocet monitoring and barefoots. So, and the reason I even use that is because it's real honest with me about the thickness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so Dangerous is another one of my favorites.
Nice.
Let's keep going down.
Well, we had a question come in while we've been geeking out here on plugins. Do you have for Pultex, do you have any tips or suggestions for getting dialing in a sound with a Pultec?
Oh yeah, let's go to one. Sorry, let me get over here and just.
So yeah, hit well, you can always also, if you're in Luna, so you can always hit the assign, so the plus will, if you already have a plugin in that spot and you hit plus, it'll bring up the plugin search here like you have, and let you replace it nice and easy.
That's good to know. All right, well, I'll definitely do that next time. Sorry, now I'm back in my
yeah, so now it's searching.
Yep, now I just gotta, but I can also just,
you can just type it in.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
This has been for me, it's been the big workflow enhancement is having search, being able to just quickly like type in what I want.
Yeah. I think for those who haven't used a Pultec, it's really good to just, do a little reading on your fundamentals of, frequencies, right?
Yeah.
Because for me, obviously, I know right where I can go right in, right? You know what I mean? If I'm what I want to tweak. So I think to answer that question and to give my tip, the first thing is really just having a really basic understanding of really understanding your frequency range. Because the Pultec is so simple. And that's one of the things I think for me, obviously graphic EQs, some people tend to like graphic EQs because they can see the frequency range and just pull it down and so forth. I think over the years in the studio, I didn't have a graphic EQ, and I would just sit there with the Pultec, and I could literally just, I had the SSL EQ right there at my fingertips, and I had the Pultec right there at my fingertips. And the Pultec was so simple because there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 controls. Outside of the power and it was so easy that I think, so for me, it's almost a muscle memory of knowing what frequency I want to boost or I want to cut, and where I want to dial into it. So to that person who asked that question, the first thing is having a really basic fundamental of knowing what range what you're really trying to accomplish with it from the door.
Yeah.
So when I go to it, I can go right into what I want to do. So with that said, I wouldn't say I really use presets on this.
Yeah, this is more of a like, pull it on. You kind of know like good. Maybe I need some more thickness, or man, I've got too much thickness or too much of a peak somewhere. Yeah. Like it's such a good, and especially as people are hopefully noticing here, this is the MEQ, which is the mid EQ Pultec that sometimes goes. Sometimes people sleep on that one. They just go straight to I want the pretty top and bottom with the EQP1A, but that MEQ is so useful for like vocals, guitars, drums. Like you can pull that up everywhere.
And I pulled that one up by accident. I really don't use the mid one that often, but that was an accident. But I would say I would experiment with the presets if this was someone who was new to it. I have not experimented with the presets on this one only because this is just a piece of gear that I already knew.
Yep.
Maybe I should experiment with the presets with it. Like I said, it is one of my go-tos. So I tend to use it when I know exactly what I'm trying to accomplish.
So I'm always curious to know how other people use the Pultec. So I got a couple of very specific questions about how you use it. First of all, do you ever use the high end attenuation? Do you ever use that to kind of round out the top, or do you kind of always leave that off?
Very seldom. Like I have used it, but no, and only when I'm on vocals.
Yep.
Only on vocals, and that's usually when I am trying to dull it, or you know what I mean, like I'm really trying to get a specific thing. So usually not.
Yep.
Just once again, I keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid.
What about the bandwidth for the high boost? Do you leave the bandwidth? Do you leave it at 0, or do you always kind of open that up and crank it out to 10?
I open it up.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say this. Yeah, I wouldn't say I always do it. But most times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Most times I would say I open it, and I would say, and I'm always boosting a little bit in the low, depending on what, not on a vocal.
Yep.
Not on a vocal, but on other things when I'm bringing it in, which to me, like same thing. Like I'll use it on synths. I'll use it on keyboards. I tend to use it probably more on vocals and synths than I do anything else.
Yep.
And
then so for the low end, how do you 20, 30, and 60 and 10, like they're all adding weight and heaviness down there, but how do you especially between like 30 and 60, how do you judge the difference between those two?
I usually don't go as low as 30. I'm usually at 60 or 100, and then at 60, I'm still with the barefoots, I'm still able to really kind of gauge where I'm at, you know what I mean, with it and dialing it in.
Yeah.
Going low, going down to 30 and so on and so forth, you're starting to get, I don't know, it gets a little bit muddy for me. Like for me, it's heavy.
Yeah.
And so I tend to stay away from that. I would say 30 is a little low for me.
Yeah.
I would say I'm 60 and 100 is all, it's almost like an always factor. And even then, depends. Honestly, this is when it's a feel thing.
Yeah.
And this is where, to me, it's real easy. That's why I like this piece of gear, because it's so simple.
It's just take 2 seconds, move, and
is this working for me? Is this not working for me? You know what I mean? All right, okay. And it's great because it's got if you haven't used this before, you will notice an immediate tone and a sort of a feel to your sound.
Yeah.
A sort of and if same thing, if you A/B this with the real thing, which I've done before, you wouldn't know the difference. It sounds great. It sounds amazing. I believe you guys had this at your booth at NAMM before.
Yep. Well, and that's kind of the thing is even you nailed it. Like even just inserting this on a channel, you've started adding a little coloration to the sound. You've added, it's passing through the tubes and the transform emulations. It's passing through the filter circuits. Even though they're all at 0, they're not really affecting the sound. It still is affecting the sound, and it's giving it something. It's like there's been plenty of cases where I've thrown this on the track and been like, oh, well, actually, yeah, no, it did everything I was going to do. I don't even have to turn the knobs.
Yeah, and I mean, exactly. Sometimes it's immediate gratification by just incorporating it in the insert chain. It is definitely something that I would say, I have it. Like I said, I'm not one of those when I'm in go-to mode and I'm in flowing this and that.
Yeah,
one of those that is in my go-to toolbox.
Yep, you can just pull that up real fast.
Yeah, everyday use, all day, every day. There's certain things to me that are and no disrespect to any other plugin that these other things that are probably cool and probably many people use. I have a lot of mix engineers that I work with who are very creative with the many things they utilize. One of the things that I've learned just over the years is the things that work. You know what I mean? And when you're doing this for a living and you want, you got to count on something and you got to get it done and you got to deliver, man, you gotta have your go-tos that just deliver time and time again.
Yep, that's so true, and that's such an important point. I hope everybody really hears that and resonates with that. Of like that, it's you have to know your tools. You have to be ready to go with them. So that way you're not, especially when someone's paying you or you're on a deadline. Like that's not the time to be playing around and demoing and trying new things that you've never done before. That's when you got to know, like, all right, man, I got my bag of tricks. I got these tools I know like the back of my hand. I can knock this out, be done with it, and still go have dinner.
That's why I think we going back to what you were talking about. I think it's so important that you do experiment.
Exactly.
You do try everything on all these different sounds because you got to know, like, okay, cool. I just recorded my live bass and I need it to sound like this because my end product needs to sound like this. You need to figure out that equation like that, especially if you're getting paid for this.
Yep.
But that's why exploration is so important. Because you've got to you explore to have your go-tos.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So going back to what we were saying about exploring, that to me is a whole new. And I don't know. I can't speak for other people, but I take notes when I explore because if I discover something, I want to remember that. So I keep for all of those. I don't know how many people do that, but I keep.
Keep just pads of paper and index cards.
I keep index cards right to the left of my keyboard. And what I do is, and I keep a notepad. And yes, everyone has their ways of organizing. Some people could use notes.
Yep.
And I tend to end up having, they come to be a pile.
Yep.
But they end up having all my notes, which is great because anytime, and I'll say, ooh, this, I'll make a note of this plugin works great on such and such. And, and next thing you know, it becomes in my repertoire.
Yep. Well, and a lot of times it's not so much that you're going to go back always and read those notes over and over again, but it's the act of saying, I found something, writing it down, just that the transfer of knowledge and kind of it solidifies it just enough that it becomes a more permanent record in your brain and something that's more easily accessible later on when you need it.
It does. And it does. Rather than me experimenting from scratch, sometimes I can look right to my notes and boom, it's like, oh, okay, let's try this. So for those who, and I know musicians tend to be some of the most unorganized people in the world. So I really think that's a good practice, to take notes as you're exploring because you're going to learn things and you're going to discover things that really work great. And, you want to make sure you incorporate it into your repertoire.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Che, man, dude, this has been so much fun hanging out with you. I've taken away. I've already learned so much, and getting inspired here. And the people in the chat are loving your philosophy and approach to plugins and to producing and everything. It's really refreshing to see how you can stay very musical, get into flow about it, and just have it seems like you've got a mastery of a lot of different tools, which is it's really cool to be able to share that with everybody. So yeah, dude, really appreciate you coming on. For people who want to like follow you or see what's going on your side of things, what's the best way for people to stay up to date with all things Che Pope?
My IG, just Che Pope, ChePope on my IG. We got a lot going on. We got, the workshop, the media companies we're launching.
Oh yeah.
And we also have the temperature check that I do every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is really cool. Which is all new artists submitting music, and we talk about it and we critique it. And same thing. We'll nerd out on a plugin. We'll nerd out on approach to a track. We talk. We get into it. There's really talented people in the community. And then I have the Q&A with Che. The Q&A with Che podcast.
Nice.
Everywhere everywhere you get podcasts or on the workshop. All the podcasts will be up on the workshop YouTube.
Nice.
So,
and that's workshop with no vowels, right?
With no vowels. Yep. WRKSHP.
Yeah, that's really cool. And for everybody watching, you guys just open a new browser tab right now, type in workshop, no vowels, check it out. It's a new project, new company. I guess you've got a couple minutes, just give them a real quick, like 60-second pitch.
If you go to the website, workshop, WRKSHP.club, it'll give you an overview of what we're doing. And it'll give all the updates because that's kind of the splash site, and the full site's coming in about a week.
Nice.
When you really be able to delve into the website. But the website's there now. People can submit and be part of the community. They can sign up and be part of the community and be updated of all the new things. It's really focused on really helping emerging new artists and producers and songwriters.
Hell yeah,
It's
dude.
all about.
That's awesome, man, and that's a great way to build community and foster the kind of the next generation of producers, artists, musicians, and that's what we really need right now.
Gotcha. And I want to on just a parting note, I just wanted to talk about Luna a little bit. For all the new, well, not even new, let's say beginners or intermediate level producers and songwriters and artists, I hope you take the opportunity to experiment with Luna, and I think you'll find in terms of the no latency, every new artist or producer or songwriter has challenges with latency in their recording in their home setup because, they're just learning how to use plugins and balance the latency and all that stuff. I really, just try it and check it out. I think you'll see such a big difference in the hassle-free recording that for me, who has been a multi-year Logic user, I don't even want to say how long I've been using Logic because that alone just dates me. That I already love recording my audio in Luna just because of the hassle-free and simplicity of the recording process, and and I can use as many plugins, and I'm putting all this stuff on stuff, and I'm having fun with it.
Yeah,
and I'm not having any latency, and even with my Apollo rig with Logic, I'm figuring out things of balancing latency. And Luna already, I have no issues. So so for people who haven't tried it, please check it out. I guarantee you'll start wanting to do all your live recording and all of that in Luna.
Yeah, it's a visual experience that you do have to you have to have it, right? You have to play keyboard in or play guitar. You're playing something where like the immediacy that the sound comes back at you. You're like, oh, this is just like plugging into an amp and hearing it in the room, or this is just like plugging my headphones into the front of my. It's just there's no disconnect between you and your instrument.
Immediately, you know what I mean? And I think when it comes to everybody recording anything live or tracking anything, man,
that's the way.
That's the way, man. It's immediate gratification. So I just wanted to leave with that parting note because obviously, I'm new to Luna and discovering it, and I'm already using it as my go-to with tracking. The only thing I can't wait when they add beat clock. That's
well,
all the Luna guys know that.
I got a feature. We joke about this all the time, but it really is such a huge element about Luna. Is the top right-hand corner of Luna is a feedback button. We've gotten tens of thousands of pieces of feedback from folks, and every update that we make, hundreds of bugs fixes are influenced by what people are hitting us back with feedback on.
How amazing is that?
Right?
The feedback button is built right into the program.
I know.
That's the best. That's so genius. Every piece of software should have that.
I know, right? Like that's all.
That's so genius.
Well, and it connects us with our users. We really know what you guys are needing and wanting the most. And just like Che dropped there, like MIDI beat clock. There's a bunch of us that our workflows will be super unlocked once Luna has MIDI beat clock integrated into it.
Yeah, as I type it right now.
Exactly, right, dude. I've done this on air. I've submitted so much feedback like live on air, and it's So it's.
I'm doing it right now. I'm stopping sharing just because I'm not giving everybody my personal email.
Nice. Well, Che, man, dude, this has been so much fun hanging out with you, man, and it's always fun to hear about your process and kind of geek out about this stuff together. Really appreciate you coming on, and look forward to seeing what you're making in Luna as you keep on using it.
Yeah, I'm gonna and for those those who start following me, I'm gonna be I wanna sort of document my journey with it. So I'm gonna be recording some sessions as I'm working on tracks with it and posting them on my YouTube and my IG. So for those who else wants to start their Luna journey with me, come join me and we'll learn together. And hopefully I can share what I'm learning and discovering, and maybe you share with me some tips and tools.
Perfect.
Cool.
Hell yeah, man. Well, Che, man. Super fun, man. Yeah, we'd love to have you back on the show as you keep on growing with it as well. And Thank you, everybody that's tuned in. We had a lot of fun here. We're actually going to be back in just about 40 minutes with Houston Singletary, session keyboardist, sound designer. He's got a also incredibly rad setup, but we're also going to be kind of geeking out about using the Minimoog inside of Luna in combination with Ableton simultaneously.
Okay, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's going to be a fun session. So yeah, he's going to be on. I'm going to hang up here with Che, and then we'll be back in just about 40 minutes. So I'll catch you guys then. Peace.
Thanks, guys. Take care.